This is Dr. Henry Louis Gates, Jr. of Harvard University, and you're listening to Genealogy Gems Podcast.
Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. What does it mean to be Latino? On May 19th, 2012, the season finale of Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr., the PBS TV series that explores race and identity through the genealogy of some of America's best-known personalities, seeks to find answers to that question. Through the family histories of actors Michelle Rodriguez and Adrienne Grenier, and Linda Chavez, an author, syndicated newspaper columnist, and political analyst for Fox News, viewers will discover that Latino identity emerged from the tangled histories of European, Native American, and African peoples. The three subjects of Sunday's episodes all share Spanish colonial roots, yet each view their identity very differently, as Native American, Puerto Rican, Dominican, or simply Latino. At the helm of this series is Henry Louis Gates Jr. He holds a Ph.D. in English literature and is the Alphonse Fletcher University professor at Harvard University, as well as the director of the W.E.B. Du Bois Institute for African and African American Research. He's best known for PBS productions like African American Lives, Oprah's Roots, and African American Lives Too. This week, I was fortunate to grab some time with this very busy man to talk about the final episode of his newest series, Finding Your Roots.
Okay, dear.
Hello,
it's showtime. Showtime.
Good to do it. All right. Wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know, I just had a chance to sit down and watch this final episode of your series.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's fantastic, as always. And
thank you.
You know, you talk about that you want to explore race and culture and identity through genealogy and genetics, but I know this is your baby. Tell us, what were you really hoping, and what were some of your goals for this episode for your audience?
Well, I wanted to. You mean for the episode, this specific episode, or the whole series?
This particular episode, but then of course the whole series. Now that it's wrapped.
Okay. Well, I wanted people to realize, first of all, in an age of this vulgar anti-immigrant, anti-Hispanic feeling in too many parts of our society, that people of Hispanic descent actually came to the United States long before the Pilgrims, long before the Mayflower arrived, and we saw that in the case of Linda Chavez's parents, her 9th and 10th great grandparents, who were in New Mexico, long before, decades and decades before the Mayflower came. That's extraordinary. That's a part of our American history that was not taught when I was growing up. We were taught that it all started in 1620, Jamestown 1607, but really when the Mayflower shows up in 1620. And it leaves out a whole important aspect of our history. So we were able to recuperate that through Linda Chavez's story, just like we did with Eva Longoria's ancestry in the previous series called Faces of America. In addition, we wanted to see what the relationship was between Native American ancestry and Hispanic ancestry out in the West, and then the relation between African ancestry and Native American ancestry and Hispanic ancestry in the islands, in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And people from Michelle Rodriguez is perfect because she's half Puerto Rican, like my sister-in-law, and she's half Dominican And it turned out she's 20% black, which is like more than she would ever have dreamed, and had a very low percentage of Native American ancestry, specifically 6%, 21% black, 72% European, and 6% 6% Native American. So I just wanted to show that American history and the interaction between peoples is much more complex and different than we stereotypically think of them as.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are all such a conglomerate of so many different backgrounds.
Which speaks to your second question, the second aspect of your question, which is, what did I want to achieve with the larger series? I wanted to achieve the fact that I wanted people to understand that we're all immigrants, we're all descendants of immigrants, even the Native Americans migrated from someplace else. And secondly, that we're all cousins, that depending on how far you go back, and now we know much more recently, we all know 50,000 years ago we were all Africans, but now we know that much more recently we all share diverse origins, that people, there's nobody who's pure.
Yeah.
That people are all mixed up, no matter what the law was or what the conventions in your society might have been. When the lights came down, people were sleeping with each other. And
exactly.
probably the quickest way to get them to do it is to tell them not to do it.
That still works today.
Yeah, it still works today. All they do is fantasize about it 24 hours a day.
That's right.
No, so it's just, and it's wonderful because it shows the diversity of the American people. And I hope that that would speak to people's fears and concerns, their xenophobia, when they're afraid of the other, when they're afraid of immigrants, because that's our open policy of immigration made America great.
Yeah. And, and to a certain extent, that's why I was a little taken aback by Michelle's reaction. You had the pie chart in front of her and her whole scrapbook, and, there's this big, large 72% European roots, and she kind of goes, ew.
Oh,
she just touched dog poop or something. I mean, it was just awful. And I thought...
I was surprised because very few people mind having a big percentage of European ancestry. I thought she would say, oh, that's good. And but then just be disappointed about her Native American ancestry. But
well, and if she had had that reaction to the 21% African roots, that would not have played well. How did you feel?
Well, everyone is entitled to... I just want people to be honest, so I really was glad that she was honest.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson for me that someone would be embarrassed to find that such a large percentage of white or European ancestry. Mm-hmm. I never had any African American who was embarrassed by having a large percentage of European ancestry, not in the series. So that was different and interesting to me.
Well, and I imagine, when you sit down with them, you don't really talk this out ahead of time, do you? I mean, you're just responding.
No, what you see is what you get on camera. We do not tell them. If anyone asks us for, no one ever has, but if anyone would ask us for preliminary, what are the bad stories, what are the good stories, I would, we don't tell them. They are totally surprised by the results that we give.
Yeah. Well, now, the series is kind of coming to a close. I'm assuming that you've already gotten feedback from the audience. Do you feel like you kind of were able to
Oh, we
succeed?
hit a home run.
Yeah.
We have 10 million people watch the first 4 episodes. That's incredible. And I know just from walking down the street, because people from all walks of life in America are stopping me in airports and drugstores and supermarkets, just saying, you did a great job. I mean, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, black people, and it's the most gratifying thing for me that I've ever done on television, without a doubt. And we're busy planning season 2. We're picking guests, and the response already has been incredible. Unfortunately, Who Do You Think You Are was canceled on Monday by NBC.
Yes.
And that was that was the more popular version of what we do. But our attitude was that, many people have asked us how we felt about that. Our attitude was that the more ancestry programs, the better. Mm-hmm. Even if ours was the first and the model, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, a wise man once said.
Absolutely.
And for us, it's like the more the better. So we're I'm very sorry for Lisa Kudrow, the producer and person I admire, that their series was canceled. But it gives us even more of a responsibility to do even more people and do more episodes, because there is a burning need and desire among the American people to know about roots and to explore their ancestry. It's a time of great uncertainty in American society, and I think that people are finding the reason that they're mesmerized is that they want to go back and build a personal foundation, a foundation for their lives through the ultimate personal quest, which is to answer the question, who am I? And who am I is dependent upon who your mother was, your father was, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, as far back as the paper trail can take you. And then when the paper trail ends, as far back as the DNA evidence can take you, and the DNA evidence can take you a long, long way.
Mm-hmm. And, family history, of course, is one of the few things really belongs just to us. You know what I mean? You can take everything away from a person. It's that nobody has your exact family history. It's such a unique gift. I mean, it's incredible.
That's a beautiful way to put it. No one can take it away from you, and it is inimitable. Mm-hmm. It is unique. It is sui generis. It is yours, and it's when you understand it, you'll begin to understand not completely why you are, why you feel the way you do and think the way you do, but the more you know about your ancestors, the more you learn about yourself. And that's the ultimate secret of doing one's family tree. I want everybody in America. When I started out, I just did African Americans. Mm-hmm. And a Russian Jewish lady wrote to me and said, "What's the matter? You're racist? You don't do white people?" And I laughed and I said, "Why not?" And I called PBS, and they said, "That's what PBS stands for, diversity." Yeah. And I called my sponsors, Ingrid Saunders-Jones at Coca-Cola, my consistent sponsor for all my genealogy genetic series. And she said, absolutely, we call it expanding the brand in the commercial world. Yeah. And that's why, and now it gives me so much satisfaction. The episode 2 weeks ago when we did Sanjay Gupta's ancestry in India and Margaret Cho's in Korea, it's like when I was a kid, I loved geography. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there with tears in my eyes, watching the amazing things that we were able to find by just going back and doing research, the paper trail. When I was when I was redefining the scope of the series, I interviewed many genealogists, and one said to me, a prominent genealogist said to me, "Oh no, only Americans have this, or only people in the West have this passion for tracing their ancestors." I won't embarrass that person, but it was completely.
They don't get out
let's
much,
just say,
huh?
They don't get out much. Let's say it was based on the lack of knowledge and a truly Eurocentric approach to the whole subject of genealogy, right. And also their own ignorance about the fact that there are genealogists everywhere in every society, because we're all human. Mm-hmm. We are fundamentally the same, and this urge to paraphrase the Greeks at the Temple of Delphi, their oracle motto was "Know thyself," and our motto at Finding Your Roots is "Know thy ancestors, know thyself." And that's true in India, it's true in Korea, it's true in China, it's true in Stockholm, and it's true in Nairobi.
Yeah,
it's true in Lagos.
True.
It's true everywhere.
And there's people all over the world just listening to us right now. I mean, I know when I started this podcast 5 years ago, I looked at the demographics and I was like, whoa, they're all over the world interested in this. And you hear from people who are saying, I'd like to be able to do that. Is that even possible here? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the question, and now, I mean, and you have to give it up to the Mormons. I love the Mormons. Yeah. I call them my friends the Mormons because, they started copying records after the president of the Mormon Church had a revelation in 1839. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason we can only do family tree tracing if the records have been preserved. And the Mormon Church has done that as part of their theology, and then companies like Ancestry.com and Archives.com, are digitizing these now. Listen, we could do things in minutes now that it would take in months or a year or more to do. When I did African American Lives, the first genealogy series on American TV in 2006. Oh, yeah. And now the DNA science is so much more sophisticated than it was when we did the first African American Lives series. So we're keeping pace with the new, and that's with the newest developments in both genealogy and genetics. And I think the thing that makes us truly unique is how sophisticated our DNA analysis, particularly our pioneering use of autosomal analysis, which will show if you and I have a recent common genetic ancestor in the last 100, 150 years. It's one thing to say you and I are cousins 10,000 years ago. Well, big deal. You got a zillion ancestors by that time. Mm-hmm. But, it is a big deal in a way when it's showing the unity of the human species going all the way back to Africa 50,000 years ago. But if I say you and I have an ancestor in the last 100, 150 years, we can find that person. We can start with our chromosomes and say, wow, there's a match, and then we can do the paper trail and with a little luck find that person, as we did in the case of Ruth Simmons, and a white descendant of the master who also impregnated her ancestor, and with Samuel Jackson, and with Cory Booker, the mayor of Newark. And that's exciting. And then we introduced in two cases, we were able to introduce the white descendant to the black descendants, to our guests. That's amazing. Oh, yeah. That didn't even exist. It wasn't possible 5 years ago.
Can you only imagine what you'll be able to do 5 years down the road on this show?
Yeah. And I hope, Lisa, that we're having that conversation 5 years from now, dear.
Exactly. Well, you talk about the DNA, and I was going to ask you about that because a couple of years ago, people were asking, should I bother doing DNA research? And it was kind of but it's not going to tell you that much. And I think your series really has opened that door to say, here's how it's advanced. Like you said, going back and saying it's 150 years, that's incredible compared to 10,000.
Oh, yeah. Well, two commercial companies have been extraordinarily, played an extraordinary pivotal role, particularly 23andMe.com and in another way, FamilyTreeDNA.com. And we use them both to test all of our guests. And then for African-American guests, we use AfricanAncestry.com. But for the use of autosomal analysis, 23andMe is the company that is the absolute best, and it will show that you're related to someone by looking at your 23 chromosomes and then sending you a visual image of the actual amount of DNA that you share on which chromosome. It's very powerful. And it means that there is no doubt, even if you can't find out who it is, that you and another person share a common ancestor back 50, 100, 150 years, depending on the length of the segments that you share. It's, as the brothers on the street say, DNA don't lie.
Exactly. Well, now you're talking to, as we're talking now on the show, you've got a lot of people who are very passionate about family history listening in and saying, Lisa, ask him what goes on behind the scenes. Have you ever thought about doing an episode that's just kind of a behind the scenes? Here's what the research really looks like. Here's what we have to go through.
That's interesting. We have done, we call it showing the bare bones, the skeleton. Mm-hmm. And we are, at first, if you go back and look at African American Lives, we kept all that, we just did a little bit of that revelation, but now we're showing more and more. So with each one, we're showing more of the process of how we make these discoveries, just as a teaching tool, and also it's fascinating. People like a good detective story. And we're doing that more and more. And it involves me, going with a genealogist, looking at records. When you see other... I looked at some episodes of another show, and there would be a celebrity who would just happen to go to a library, happen to open a book, and wow, there's an ancestor. Well, of course, that had all been done before. The genealogist had already found it, and they were just acting like they had found it. It's like nobody's fooled by that. But the real story is how it is actually found. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of fun. And to our pleasure, the more we show, the more people tell us that they like it. We're very sensitive to what people think, and we want to know how they feel.
Yeah.
And they write to us. I mean, believe me, when you get 2.5 million people watching each week, you get a lot of comment. And fortunately, it is overwhelmingly positive and encouraging,
nice.
and people want us to do more and more series, so it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually really do appreciate the fact that you go through almost a ritual of putting the book in front of them, because you are acknowledging this is a monumental piece right here, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm just whipping it out of my back pocket and putting it in front of you.
Yeah, no, Oprah said to me, the thing that makes your series unique is that you have the book. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. She had Lisa Kudrow on when they started Who Do You Think You Are, and me at the same time.
Oh, uh-huh.
And Lisa went first, and then Oprah said, and the man who invented the genre, which I was very flattered by,
sure.
The genre of genealogy and genetics. There had been an English version of Who Do You Think You Are, which I had never seen before when we started our series. Mm-hmm. But they did not, as I found out, they only did genealogy. They didn't do genetics. So our originality was doing the first show with genealogy and genetics. Mm-hmm. But Oprah said at the time, the thing that makes your show unique is that book. I named it The Book of Life.
Yeah.
And it is, and I didn't want to insult the intelligence of the guests by underestimating their intelligence. I walk them through the stories that we have gathered about their ancestors page by page, and it starts with their baby picture always, and the date of their birth, and then we take them back to their oldest ancestor, and then when the paper trail ends, we do their DNA. It's a great formula, and also it's convenient for our guests because they don't have to take a week off. They give us 3 or 4 hours. That's it.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And then we sit there. We're surrounded by camera crew. They have not been given any information, and I walk them up their family tree. And it's sometimes I cry with them. It's very moving to me. I remember an episode of Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie.
Oh yeah.
And it was the empath. And sometimes I feel like the empath. When I am empathizing with, I'm giving people a gift, and I'm empathizing with them. I'm empathizing with the sufferings of their ancestors, the triumphs of their ancestors. It's very moving to me. It's very draining. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, but it's very moving, and it's a unique gift that my producers, and I want to say who they are, my partner Dylan McGee and Peter Kuhnhart, fellow executive producers, but my senior producer Rachel Dretson, she's a good Yaley like I am, and my senior story producer Asako Gladjo, who's been with me from the very first series through African American Lives 1, African American Lives 2, Face of America, and now the primetime show Finding Your Roots. We are a team, and we complement each other, we teach each other, we're just partners, and we've come up with a program that I am just so pleased about and gratified for the overwhelming response. So thank you very much for having me on your podcast, and thank you for your very, very kind words and intelligent questions.
Profile America, Wednesday, May 23rd. Many things we take for granted in the current U.S. actually had their beginnings in colonial America. Life insurance is one. While sources vary as to the exact beginning date, it appears to be between 1759 and 1761 in Philadelphia. The first known life insurance company was called the Corporation for Relief of Poor and Distressed Widows and Children of Presbyterian Ministers. Given the time and location, it should not be surprising that Benjamin Franklin was involved in setting up the business. Now there are 946 life insurance companies in the U.S., with nearly 300 million policies in force. Profile America is produced by the U.S. Census Bureau, measuring America, people, places, and our economy.
Thanks so much for joining me for Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 133. And thank you very much to my very special guest, Henry Louis Gates, for taking time out to join me here on the show. And I hope that you will join me at the Southern California Genealogical Society Writers Workshop and Jamboree. It starts June 7th, runs through the 10th of 2012 in Burbank, California. I'll be there teaching several classes, some of which are brand new, and I would love to see you there. It's not too late to register. I'll have a link in the show notes to my blog post. It has all the details and the information. It has all the information and the website links that you need. And if you want to stay in touch with me, go right now to genealogygems.com, sign up for the free newsletter. And if you do that, you receive my free ebook. It's 5 fabulous Google search strategies for the family historian. Absolutely free. And that's a sweet deal, right? Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.